Let's do this. So, welcome to Design Thinking at Night. It's been a long rant, 4 minutes long, but we want to cover the design thinking methodology as a whole, what it's missing, etc. Let me just check if my beautiful pen thing is working. Okay, it is working. The computer is struggling a little bit, but design thinking, it's been around there it's been out there forever. It's been around for a long time. I think that 50s and 60s were kind of the commercial aspects of this whole methodology, the way of thinking, or the way to creatively solve some of the problems. They have been around for quite some time. And I'm not sure how familiar you are with the methodology, so I will kind of tell you a little bit more about what the process of design thinking actually looks like, and be open to any questions you might have. And then we'll go right into the experience mapping. So when it comes to design thinking as a whole, the process itself is pretty simple. I always call it a common sense methodology. And to me, I would summarize it in one sentence. Design thinking is all about validating anything we put out there into the field early on and as quickly as possible. So basically, to summarize it in one word or one sentence, it would mean validate before you implement. So validate any idea, any concept that you might have, whatever it is. Is it a startup? Is it a new business? Is it a new product, new service? Whatever that thing is that you're trying to push out into the market or solve you have an idea that you want to push out or implement. Definitely just make sure that you validate that idea is valid, that people kind of relate to it, etc. And this whole methodology, this whole process of design thinking is built around that specific concept. So validate your concepts early on. And the standard way that this has been developed quite a few years ago, as I've mentioned, maybe I'll take a white pen this time, or maybe something more pinkish. Let's see this. Can you see this? Let's see this. Okay, the layer should be on top, right? Awesome. Okay, so that should work. Perfect. Moving right along. So the standard design thinking as it's been developed in the 50s and the 60s actually contains only these parts of the actual thing. So it goes from building the customer perspective, so talking to some customers, defining their challenges and their needs and what needs are unfulfilled for them, and then ideating, so generating as many cool solutions as possible, then prototyping the best of those solutions that we generated, and then testing them out with some real human beings. And that's pretty much the gist of the whole design thinking process. And there are two steps for me when I've been applying this commercially for quite some time now that are missing in this kind of standard way of approaching this whole thing. The core of the process remains, but it's missing two crucial steps. The main concept of this whole design thinking methodology is putting the customer or the user or the recipient of your services in the center of the process. And that's what we've covered, right? So we talk to some customers and then we test out some of the ideas or prototypes with them. And that's okay. We can put them in the middle of the process, but the standard design thinking methodology kind of starts and ends with the customer, starts and ends with the end user or with the recipient of the service. And that's a lack, or that's a limit that I would like to break with what we're putting out here. And that's adding two more additional steps, because to me, applying this commercially for businesses globally, to some of the biggest enterprises, when we do this commercially, it doesn't really start and end with the customer. It starts and ends with the business, actually, with the people that are actually providing the services, providing the products, and making this whole thing run. And that's why we've added those crucial two steps, and these are called the business hypothesis. And we will cover some of those aspects of the mapping of those experiences hypothetically today. And once we have done all the design work and we're solving some of the issues for our customers, we can then, usually the way that it works as designers, we follow the simple or the standard process, and we end up with testing. So we have a cool idea, we've tested it out with some real people, and they're saying that this is cool. This is a great idea. What a great prototype. What a great, service idea. And for a lot of the design projects, that's where we end as designers. We're like, okay, dear business people, there you go. This is the service prototype. Off you go. Have fun with it. And that's where actually our problems end, because we can invoice the work and they pay the designer, etc. But that's actually where the biggest problems of that organization actually starts. And that's why we've added this specific step, which is called impact delivery, to the whole design thinking process. Reaching out to some of you watching this live on Facebook on my private page. If you go to 99 Grid and go to the event, you can actually see what I'm drawing here on the screen. But going back to, hello Aggie, I think that you've been here before. So welcome, I'm really glad that you're here. So going back to the gist of this whole thing, what I wanted to do today is show you some of the canvases and some of the tools of how to actually put all of these things together to add those two crucial steps in the process, because there's something really important happening on those steps, and that is experience mapping. And since you now are aware of what design thinking as a process is and those 7 crucial steps, how they're all connected together, I don't want to get into much detail about that. But when it comes to experience mapping, it's all about building an experience map, which I'll get into. But there are 3 different types of mapping. And I'm just thinking, first of all, is what I've just covered, that's very cool, Aggie, is what I've covered so far understandable, guys? By a show of hands, is that pretty common sense? It's like validate before you continue. And the additional elements when it comes to impact on the business itself. These are the people that pay the designer, but also, these are the people that put out the services out there. So before I actually get into the types of kind of experience maps, I want to show you what an experience map actually is. So let's just get out of this beautiful software called Photoshop here and go straight into our clean business hypothesis map. Well, this is not so clean, so I'll just get rid of those post-it notes. So you can actually see the map without any content on it. So the way that it's actually structured, it's the map itself is pretty much a graph. So all we need to cover here is basically putting some of the business activities in front of our customers and then kind of assess the level of the experience. And the whole concept of this tool when it comes to experience mapping is to make sure that we have a visual representation of the entire business, the entire service, the entire product, from the perspective of a customer that in this specific case, we're calling them an archetype, or I wouldn't call them a persona per se yet, but we're calling that an archetype. And this entire map is built very simply out of listing out all of the current activities that a certain business or a service or a product is providing to that customer or to that user, and then simply highlighting the level of the experience on that specific map. As you can see, there's like 4 dots, and all we need to do is highlight an activity here as a business, and then on that basis, assess the level of the experience of this specific customer to that activity, and making sure that when we put those activities together, we do that as quickly as possible with the right team around the table. And this is basically the structure of this whole thing. So we have the activities of that service, activities of the business or the product itself that we put in front of an archetype that we identify here. And I'll show you some of the tools. We've got a cool product like a card deck that is kind of helping us to show off what that archetype is characterized by. And there's obviously everything in the context of the business goal. So there is a specific outcome that as a business person I want to achieve. In order for me to achieve that outcome, I need some customers, some recipients, some users to get there. And therefore, if I combine the business goal, the user, if I put them together, there's some current activities that I'm actually undertaking as a business to make sure that this whole thing works, right? But then all we need to do is take each one of those activities and assess what is the level of current experience that this person is having in the context of the entire service. And that's pretty much what the experience map is. And that's how we actually do it. But there are 3 different types of experience maps. And I want to break down some of those because they differ slightly when it comes to the context of what they're actually showcasing. And I'll go back to our fancy little graph over here. I'll put it on the full screen. And there are 3 different types of the experience maps. And the structure is exactly the same. So activities, level kind of experience that the current customer or a potential customer is having. But there are 3 different types. And the only difference between those is the step of the process that we're actually on. And the first experience map is being created right here. It's called the business business hypothesis. So like the step itself, hypothesis map. And it's structured like we've covered it so far. So it's activities, level of experience in the context of that specific business goal and the recipient. But there's one crucial thing. It's all hypothetical. This is something that we put in front of business people around the business table on our initial meetings, when we sit down with the people running the show, C-level staff, people that can have the perspective of looking broadly at the entire business, of the entire service, and actually seeing all of its areas. And that's where we identify all of those current crucial activities. But everything that a business person tells us on that specific meeting is hypothetical. I never treat that as something that's carved in stone, that's something that's really, we should be certain this is exactly what it's like, because they are not the recipient. They are not the customer. They are not the end user. So therefore, whatever they tell us, to me, it's all hypothetical. So I want to break it down. And yeah, sure, they've been around for ages. They've been around for 20, 30 years. So probably they have a good sense of what their business is like, where they're struggling, where they are not struggling. But I still treat everything that they give us as a hypothesis, and I just outline all of the activities. And that's the first map. The structure is the same: activities, level of assessment, recipient. But I'm just putting everything out there, but I treat that as a hypothesis. And that's when this whole crucial thing turns into another type of experience map. And I call this an as-is experience map. Experience map. And that's connected obviously to the customer perspective part of this whole process, because I take the hypothetical map, I take it through its, I kind of take it through its paces, and I put it out there into the field. I talk to some real customers about the actual activities. So I recruit those customers, I recruit those people, I sit down with them, I have some conversations, and on that basis, I can then assess really what's happening within that specific activity, not from the perspective of the business person, but from the perspective of the actual customer, from the actual recipient of that service or product. And that's something that gives me facts. It's obviously derivative of the synthesis that I need to do after I've done the customer perspective part, I've done the research, I've talked to some people, I've done some online questionnaires. There are various different ways of creating that perspective of the customer, different methods of research, but that allows me to take the hypothesis and validate it very early on. So when going back to our little canvas here, let me just take that over here. Okie dokie. Open up this one, right? And I'll export it to a PNG image, and I'll put it back into the Photoshop so that we'll be able to, to then draw on it. Going back to this one, can you still see my screen, everybody? Yeah, with the map. Okay, cool. Because the frame somehow disappeared, but the structure remains the same. All I'm doing is taking each one of those activities, asking the real human being, the real customer about it, and if the business person told me that this activity in their mind is absolutely not acceptable, so it has the lowest potential level of experience, that might be something that's real, and we validate it with some customers and they confirm it. They're like, yeah, this activity here, this is pretty bad, it's crap, we hate it, this is the worst part of this entire service. And that's something that can happen. We can validate and confirm whatever the business person told us. Very often though, it's the other way around. So somebody around the business table told us that this is pretty bad, this is really wrong. But when we actually talk to some customers, they're like, no, it's not that bad. I mean, it's actually a pretty cool, pretty good, solid piece of service you have there. So it's actually elevated a little bit further up than the business people tell us. Obviously, this happens the other way around. So sometimes business people tell us that, no, this activity right here is like the biggest, the best. It's nobody else on the market has anything like that ever. And we go out into the customers, to the customers, talk to them, and they're saying that no. This is like, yeah, there's a lot of functionality. Half of it we don't need, and it's like, it's dropping the experience level further down than the business people anticipated to begin with. So these are the two things that can happen. So we validate and we confirm whatever happened, whatever the business people told us, or we Second thing is we find things that are totally different to whatever they told us. And there's one additional thing that happens here. We have new additional activities that on the first business hypothesis mapping exercise with the business people, we didn't even know about, because now we've spoken to some customers and they actually told us a little bit more about what is actually happening within that service. And we found 2, 5, 10 different activities that the business people didn't even know about that exist, right? So I go through that exercise, I go and then basically create an as-is customer experience map on top of this one. So let me just try and download this thing so that you can see how to fill this bloody thing out. So we have a good example of how to do it, so just bear with me. And when that's happening, is Mural fast enough? Okay, cool. Let me just see it again. So I'll export it to PNG again, PNG image. A download link, which I haven't received yet, we'll get there. So actually, you know what, guys, we'll do it differently. We'll do it faster than that. And we'll just move this to Photoshop straight on. There you go. That was a quick fix of that situation. Okay, so let's create another layer. And before we get to another layer, I'm going to cover some of the aspects of this experience mapping. So we've covered 2 types of the maps. The first one, hypothetical with the business people. Second one, as is, because we've talked to some real customers. And that's where the real designer's job begins, right? We know we define some problems or design challenges. We then go and ideate as many solutions as possible. We prototype the best of them. We test them out with the real human being, and then we know, hopefully, right? We've tested it out, and they're saying that, yes, this prototype is pretty cool, and we'd be happy to use it if you implemented it. And that's where our designer's role kind of ends. But there's a third type of a business hypothesis map, and that's, if I go back to my layer over here, and that's, yes, you've guessed it, I'm sure that you're thinking about it already, and that's the 2B experience map. Experience map. Right? And that's what needs to change within that business to make that prototype that we've tested with some real human beings actually operational, that the organization can actually handle it, that they have the knowledge, the expertise, that they have the tools, the processes, the technology to actually deliver on the promise. Because we might have created a cool prototype of an app, we've tested it out and it's been done, you know, within a month, but it's a prototype. And we're like, yes, dear client, it works. And then we give the prototype to the client or to the business, and they're like, okay, so what do I do with it now? And they don't know because, for example, they don't have the knowledge, they don't have the expertise to develop an app. So they are left with a problem of a working prototype that makes sense to some customers, but they now have a challenge of how to actually deliver it into the market. You know, how to create this product, how to implement it, how to design it, how to roll it out into the market, etc. So that's pretty crucial for those guys to help them out with that specific thing. And the 2B experience map is there to help us with mapping not only what's going to happen to the experience level if we implement whatever we're trying to implement, but also listing out some of the business aspects of what are the business goals that we're going to be trying to achieve through the implementation of those things. Is the organization ready? There's change management. There's some risks involved into actually implementing this thing into the market. And there's some KPIs or key performance indicators that we can put in front of this whole solution to make sure that we can measure the success as it kind of unfolds, right? So the 3 types of experience map: the hypothetical, created as a hypothesis with the business people, then the as-is one with some real human beings, with some real customers, and then once we've solved the issues, we create the 2B experience map to see what's going to happen or anticipate what is going to happen when we implement. Is that understandable, guys? Is that something that we can wrap our heads around? Awesome. Let me just see, I'm staring intently at the chat. So if there's anything out of the ordinary or anything that you'd like me to cover in detail, definitely do so. Okay, cool. So now let's try and do a little bit of a draw out of what we actually mean when it comes to this experience mapping exercise. And this whole thing, this canvas here, it's part of the Design Thinking Masterclass Bootcamp that we've created. It's on Udemy and Skillshare and on our own platform as well, 99grid.com. and I can kind of share the links to that if you're interested. But going back into the actual tool and how it all works. So the first business hypothesis map is built around some activities. So you list out those activities, and let me just, maybe what I'll do is I'll show you an example of those activities in one of the new roles that I've created for the actual academy. And that's this one. It should be this one. So this is an actual exercise of how to map those experiences together without that mapping of the assessment yet. So we can do our example of the mapping on this actual exercise. So this has been done by me personally for the 99 Grit Academy. So for the business itself, how to run the academy, who is our primary audience. So we've picked out the potential UX designer being our potential customer who would like to learn a little bit more about service design, for example. So learn more about how to design experiences broadly for the entire service, not just for one specific touch point, which is like a mobile app or the interface between a human being and a machine. So that's what we anticipate some of the potential customers might be. And those have been derived from the business goal that we've put in front of ourselves. And this is, we would like to increase the number of students at 99 Grit Academy by 30%. Andy is here because I'm the one responsible for the delivery of this goal. We've done that in the past through our Design Thinking Masterclass programs, and we're giving ourselves 6 months to do it. So there's this whole SMART goals methodology that's actually kind of creating this goal for us. So we've picked this one. On the basis of this goal, we've picked the customer. On the basis of that specific customer, we then highlighted some of their key features. And as you can see it here, we've chosen the age, we've chosen the family structure, so we believe that they might have some small kids. Where do they live? We've anticipated that they will be living in a small city. They're a humanist, and they work at an office job. And this is kind of the archetype attributes that we've outlined. And there's this cool tool, it's called I don't know if you can see it, it's like a card deck that actually specifies all of those elements, and then we can pretty easily highlight each one of those out of a category of similar elements. Like, you know, we've got the age brackets, the family structure brackets, etc., etc. So that's what we've picked. And on the basis of imagining as a business, I'm doing it hypothetically, right? Before I went out into the field, talked to some customers or actual UX designers, which I did, I basically sat down with myself and with some people around the table, and we decided this is our customer. And they're aged 27 to 35, they have some small kids, etc. And started kind of empathizing with that group of people. And then thought about, okay, what kind of activities as 99 Grit Academy we're actually putting out there to support them, to solve some of their problems. You know, what way of interacting between ourselves and them do we have? And that's when we came up with these. So we do, like, every Monday, 10 a.m. CET, we're doing a live event on Facebook to deliver value to those guys. Every Thursday, it used to be at 10 a.m. CET. It's now at 2000 hours or 8 p.m. CET. And we're doing a Design Thinking at Night webinar, which we do now. We're doing design vlogs every Tuesday. We're doing vision vlogs every Wednesday, where we have a web page, obviously, 99grit.com. There's some parts of the packages for free. There's some free 3-part video series there. There's some YouTube videos that we're doing quite a few activities to deliver value to those guys, yeah, to make sure that we provide them with knowledge, inspiration, and making sure that they have the tools to make the shift from being a UX designer to becoming a service designer. But we haven't assessed it yet, right? So let's do it together. So what I'm going to do, and I'll do the same thing I just did. So I'll just break it down this way. Just take a snapshot of the screen, put it into our fancy Photoshop. There you go. Fantastico. And now all we need to do is, me as a business owner, I do it hypothetically, right? So I sit down with some people that have an understanding of our business as much as I do. I usually do it with maybe 5 to 7 people max on a workshop, C-level and kind of directors, people that have that perspective of looking at things. And then all I need to do, let me just take a color over here. Maybe we'll take a black one for the business, the black business capabilities. And then I go through each one of those activities and I'm like, okay, so how do we feel that we're doing on the Mondays? Well, Mondays, 10 a.m., I think that it's pretty solid. I'm not so sure. I just put the, it's pretty good. That's what I believe as a business owner, right? The Thursday, 8 p.m. webinars, which we're doing currently, well, this is absolutely great. I'm sure you'll relate and you'll confirm, right? And then moving on, you know, the design vlogs, I think that they do require quite a lot of work when it comes to the value that they bring to those people. The vision vlogs, I think they're pretty shit, to be honest. So I assess them to be really not acceptable. I would like to increase the value that we deliver through those dramatically. So therefore, to me, it's a 0. Then we go to the 3-part-free video series on 99 Grid. That's pretty crap also. Then we go to the design thinking ebook with design thinking tools. It's okay, you know, it's nothing major. It's like 70 or 80 pages long, but it lacks the delivery. You know, we could definitely bring it to the higher level of what it could be. So to me, it's a 1. Then we have our free YouTube videos. I think they're pretty decent. Then we have our courses on Udemy and Skillshare. I would assume that they're pretty okay. If this Photoshop starts working, okay, cool. They're pretty okay. Then we have the online blended learning program that we're working on, and hypothetically, I believe that this is one of the best things out there. But still, I think that it's still lacking. And we have the Thinkific platform allowing for online learning. This is pretty bad. So I would like to kind of, you know, leverage some of it. And then we have the Facebook and LinkedIn fan page, and I think that that's unacceptable, and I would like to change that dramatically. And that's pretty much the exercise. It takes no time at all to do that assessment. The biggest amount of time that it takes on a workshop is to put those post-it notes as activities down there, because all we need to do now is just an exercise of connecting the dots, and that's it, pretty much. So we just do that, kaboom, 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 kaboom. And that's, I always hatch this thing just to make it more visually pleasing. I'm not sure if the computer is going to allow me to do that. Hopefully it will. It is heating up a little bit, but I think it will be. And that's pretty much it. So we have a visual representation of the hypothetical map when it comes to our 99 Grid Academy business, right? And that's something that I would do with myself, with the people around the table, and that's it. And then I take this map, those activities out into the field. I call some UX designers, I call some UI designers, I call some people that are interested in experience designing, learning about service design, for example, and I ask them about each one of those activities. Obviously, there's a specific way of coming up with those open-ended questions, building the online questionnaires, and I don't want to get into too much detail about that, but I go out into the field, ask about each one of those to make sure that I can validate the level of the experience. And what I come back with, usually, I'll put in another layer, is something slightly different. So this will be the customer. There you go. And I'll do maybe a blue color, like this one. And I come back, I synthesize the research for each one of those activities. I have a set of questions, so I have a set of answers to those questions. And on that basis, I can assess if what I've assessed, that the Monday live events are good, I can then assess if that activity delivers on the promise, how many problems it's solving, is it solving any problems, is it fulfilling any needs? And then I can assess, is it actually good or is it actually pretty bad, you know? And that's when I take each one of those activities, I synthesize the research, and on that basis, for each one of the people that I've spoken to, I can then come back and validate my experience map, my hypothetical experience map, and visually have a good representation of what the experience level actually is, and thus creating, yes, you've guessed it, the as-is customer experience map. And then I can hatch this bad boy again. And the overlap of those two elements, it's usually pretty different. Because sure, business people, they know their business, they've been around this business for quite a long time, but at the end of the day, they're not customers, so they can't really empathize that much. So therefore, we always come back with a different view, at least on few areas from what they've actually told us. And that's pretty much the transformation from the hypothetical experience map to the as-is customer experience mapping exercise. Is that understandable, guys? Everything? Yeah, cool. Any questions? Is it pretty simple, right? This is like basic stuff. You know, it's pretty easy to do, having the right tools. And when it comes to the 2B, just covering the 2B map very quickly, we go through the process. We highlight some of the as-is lowest areas. So to me, I would probably cover like this activity here, maybe these two, as being the biggest problems within design, kind of the 99 Grit Academy. These would be the worst activities. So I would go through the process of coming up with some cool solutions to make the 3-part video series like we have here more tangible, better, more valuable, so that I can increase the level of the experience further up. And that's the exercise of the designer to do. And then once we've done the cool prototype and we've tested it out, we can then assess by how much will the experience change in the 2B level of the experiences. And I'll maybe take a pink color, and then we can assess, okay, so if I have implemented some solutions, what's going to change as far as the experience is concerned? And let's imagine we'll increase this activity level to a number 3. This one will raise to this one. This one will raise to this one, and this one will raise to this absolutely unbelievable activity, and this one will raise to that level, for example. And then all we need to do, again, is connect the 2B experience activities that we've raised with the as-is, because that's something that we haven't had an impact on. So this would be this dot, this dot, this dot over here. I guess it will be this one. Getting lost with my dots here. There you go. The as-is. There you go. There you go. There you go. And nothing's changed over here. And that's pretty much the gist of the exercise. And to me, what I usually try to highlight here is not the entire map, but the actual difference. The area of the impact that we're trying to have is the difference between what we've changed and the as-is customer experience level. So that's pretty much these areas over here. We're getting into math here, really, you know, drawing these graphs out. But that's what actually happens. That's the change that we've designed as designers. So this is the design impact that we're having. This little purple thing, the purple area or the pinkish area, whatever you want to call it, this is the difference that as designers we bring to the business table. And that's the change that we've delivered with design thinking. And we can visually have a very nice visual representation of what that actually is. So guys, any questions? Fire away. Let me just close this thing from whatever it is. Let me just stop the screen share. Any questions? Fire away. We're like 37 minutes in. I hope that it was that you're alive, well, healthy, and happy. All right. Any questions, guys? Or is this pretty like clear and good to go? Yeah? Awesome. Okay, cool. So 37 minutes in, 38 minutes in, I'll cover one more aspect of actually how to create those two things. Well, when it comes to business goals and the primary archetypes, to let you know fully how to create the first business hypothesis map. And then we'll open to questions. And if there won't be any, we'll basically let you leave and have a lovely evening on your own without this whole madman talking to you about all these crazy things. Okay, I'll just open up the chat so I have access to whatever you're saying. Goody. And also, actually, do you know what? Maybe instead of going into this whole business goals and all that crap, maybe I'll talk a little bit about the remote work because let me just have a sip of my, it's water. It's water. There's no alcohol here. And the remote work. We're all kind of getting into this thing now because of this whole Corona madness. And there's the specific tool that we're using online to do these. And all of those canvases have been designed to actually suit the tool. And it's called Mural. If you haven't used Mural in the past, I definitely highly recommend it. There's like 2 tools that support us in our design ways of doing these things. And that's Mural and that's Miro. So if you go to Miro, not Mural, but Miro. It's a team collaboration software. And I'll cover Mural in some more detail now. I can cover Miro in the future lives or the future webinars if you'd like me to. But the mural itself, so these canvases, they're obviously, if you print them out for a real workshop, like with real people, on an A0 format sheet of paper, these little squares, they're going to fit a 75 by 75 millimeter post-it note. So this little square, like, where is it? So, oh, come on, give me that. Oh, man, I'm getting too old. So these little post-it notes, they're gonna kind of fit into the canvas perfectly. But if you don't anticipate any workshops happening soon, which I don't believe you will, with this whole thing happening and blowing up in our faces, the canvases have been placed there, and they fit a post-it note that's being kind of generated by Mural. So you just double click off the canvas, and it fits those little spots pretty well. And it allows us for actually collaborating with a lot of people doing this online. And same goes for drawing on this thing. If we take maybe this one, and then probably I think that it's a, where do I change the color? Can I change the color of this thing? Probably later on. I can actually draw some stuff on it as well. So I can map those experiences using very simple tools. Obviously I have this little pen, so I can be a little bit more fancy over here, right? So I can actually do this mapping exercise online, and it's all available in the browser. And this way, I can actually map some of those things remotely and have no problem with done drawing. And then it's actually something I can move around even. I have a separate layer to actually kind of cover some of those aspects. Probably edit it in some way, shape, or form as well to add some more color and vibrance to the whole picture. And these canvases and a Mural app specifically really helps us with delivering those experiences and those workshops well, internationally and online without, you know, talking to those people in person. So that with this whole madness happening around us is definitely pretty powerful. And I would highly recommend, you know, you use the tools and obviously Mural app as well. I think there's like 30-day free trial where you can actually yeah, just get yourself accustomed to the tool, and then it's not too expensive to actually make it happen. And yeah, if you do, you can then have access to these tools. And obviously, if you'd like these canvases, I can, you know, kind of send them out to you. So if you sign up to 99grid or send an email out to hello@99grid.com, I'll type it into the chat at 99grid.com. Hello at 99grid.com. Just send an email out there and we'll be happy to send you the whole package. If you want to see the package itself, let me just close these things. Okie dokie. And we have this one. And all of these canvases you can then upload into Mural and have access. You can create design visions. You can define business goals using these canvases. You can then derive and kind of create stakeholder mapping. You can create the archetype itself, and then on top of that, do the experience mapping exercise. And at the very end of this whole thing, we have this card deck as well, which we've designed. You can have access to that and then be able to create those archetypes. And if you would like more details about how to do it, there's an online course on Udemy that I can give you access to as well. I'm not really prepared for that because these are not sales calls. Do you know what? If you want access to the Udemy course, send an email out, and I'll definitely send you the details. I don't want to bore you with that information. So definitely check out the Mural app. It's pretty cool, pretty powerful, and yeah, when you put these canvases in, it's pretty simple to actually fill those out online with some real people remotely. So I usually basically have I usually sit down with the team on a Zoom call, have a Mural app opened up with the canvas, and that's all I do. I run and facilitate the workshop. They have access to the Mural as well, so they can actually put some of their own post-it notes, and that's how we work. That's how we make it happen. So I highly recommend the Mural app for these kind of things and the tools themselves, and that's pretty much